So what the dollar is, well, I always say before I have this kind of conversation, is an ode to what a piece of paper can do. And many think that just the concept behind the dollar bill is what allows it to have the power that it has. But actually, the dollar bill is a talisman. The dollar bill was configured through a hermetic science, which is different than alchemical science. But that's, there's a couple radio shows, I think Radio One can see the difference between the hermetic traditions and the alchemical traditions. But this is the configuration of a two-dimensional imprint that actually, with the magnetic strip, attracts a person to their own demise. And so one is basically to attempt to balance out those kind of currents, because it's not that you're going to be able to just drop it right away. But you're right, that alchemical configuration on that dollar, which is deep levels of symbolism when it comes to frequencies, that's what you see in the webs and the nests. Those are cymatics. And then you see the signature, the two-dimensional imprint of the dead president, which is obviously necromancy, right? You're showing images of someone dead, and then you have their signature there. So this art or craft is ancient. And what it causes is it causes a resonation to the ideas of the core of where those bones reside. So wherever those bones of those presidents reside, they generally are on a field that is configured geomantically to emit this level of enslavery and what's going on with why we have to utilize that particular greenback in order to become a form or a barter system for our energy. So you're definitely right that once one's turned on to their own energetic field, what happens on the money level, again, because the world is using it, is that the money does actually come abundantly as long as one plants it properly. And then eventually you realize, because if you're trafficking in this kind of knowledge, you realize sovereignty is actually obtained first spiritually by disavowing. That just means that you go against the system that is emulating some kind of external entity as being the end all finish all for people. And then you work to control real power, because remember, these in the dominion realm, they're working with electricity, they're working with water. That's their powers. It's not like our ancestors in the level of their power, but through that power, still, your water, your electricity, there is a heavy level of control. So when one is able to produce their own water, whether they have a well, their own electricity, whether they're using solar power, then they actually symbolically put their spirit in the next stage of its own sovereign freedom. And so these are things, that's why I say as above, so below. If you find that you cannot work at something on a specific level, there's always a spatial. There's always a place that you can undo or work in a way where you can free yourself from certain things that will otherwise be impossible in certain places. So like moving a stone, like in physical reality, that stone ain't going nowhere. It's too heavy. But you move in the next spatial, you can move it onto the top of the mountain and then come back in the physical plane and find it there. So that's how we move large objects. And that could be an entity, that could be over profane thought, like money, that could be anything. We can easily go, when we understand this knowledge, I remember knowing is half the battle. So just simply the mind hearing this today already is at work. That's how fast it moves. Mm-hmm. And because the mind, body, and soul moves in conjunction, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, that's only the mind, that's only knowledge. No, you don't know what's going on then. The mind and the body and the soul move as one. So even when the mind hears something, it passes it on to the soul, or the spirit, excuse me. And then the spirit, being as a flaming fire, will try to whip up the beast to do what needs to be done in order for the next level to come along, because it has heard something greater. And that's why they say even the jinn can be convinced. If you read the Quran to them, the Quran was the book of the Kabbalah, which read out the secrets of a person's body, numerically equivalent to the number 19. Not the book that was brought into publication after the Abrahamic traditions attempted to usurp the entire throne of the kingdom of the world, also known as Brahm, and his wife Saraswati, which comes out as Abraham and Sarah. So what we realize again is that something new is on the wind, and it cannot be stopped. And those who move with that force cannot be thwarted. And the only thing it requires is integrity and truth. That's it. Like, as far as your flaws and all of that kind of stuff, that's petty. Like, if we cannot agree in where we are now, then we want to change the past. So you have to just get comfortable with yourself and where you are. Like, hey, what I did got me to where I'm at right now, but I can change. I'm not going to be judged. See, the judges are the Hebdomad. Those are the 7 gods that reside around the realms and circumference, like the old Sumerian pantheism of the 7 realms, 7 days of the week. When you're not judged, meaning you come out of that whole idea that you have to harmonize with some kind of state of consciousness or some kind of punishment system, all of those kind of things, then one passes by them because they cannot see them. This is like what they show you in the Kemetan. You see the big deities, and none can cross their gates without being basically shaken down for their memories. When one is not judging, they can't even be seen, so they just glide right by. And this, again, is way a different level of knowledge for the traveler, but that's what we're doing, is we're traveling now beyond the scope of this realm. And instead of going there looking for knowledge like we're scientists or on any of these kind of systems and crafts that they've been using that are defunct, what has been abhorred in heaven and brought down by those who were brought low, we're going in there and we're just staying open and neutral. And we have our birthright, which is our mother. And there was no being in this vicinity that didn't know about our mother and doesn't have kids by our mother. And that's why, when they try to demonize it, they go, oh, they're harlot. But see, every Mary in the book of the Bible is all the same being. And that lets you know the different aspects of how they're referring to the divine feminine. Oh, she's a harlot. And no, she was the one to Jesus. Jesus used to kiss her in the mouth. And you just have to keep reading the books until you realize, oh, man, and then, of course, the experience. So this is a great time for us. And we will not allow that time to be spoiled by our programming. Because that's why one has to always, stay on the throne, move back in the mind. The moment the mind tries to go into, because it's going to do that for a while, when it starts going into, but we're still going to, whoa. We are not going to do anything. You may go and do it. That's how you put the temples in check. See, Cain and Abel are in the temple. This is the good angel and the bad angel, right? Cain was the bad one. Abel was the good one, according to the documents. So, but they sit in the temple, meaning they sit in the left or the right side of the brain. It's all metaphors. And then they're always like basically talking about doing opposite what the other one is doing. And this keeps us in this conflict. But remember, the conflict is generating power for the cosmos, and the cosmos is riding across like it's a chariot. You see, so we can't look for sympathy from the cosmos. And this is the deep thing to think about, is that it's all energy. So our conflicts create energy, just as the pistons moving back and forth on an engine create power. So if all is energy, then the whole conflicts of what goes on inside of this crucible is only fueling a much more larger life form that needs to exist in order to become the foundation for something even greater than it. Meanwhile, you're in this. That's always like to just segue out of it and be like, but meanwhile, I'm in this. So just as having this microcosmic universe within myself, that does not mean that when taking domain and sovereignty over myself, that I have to agree to any of this going on with me. And if this is the case in which my name has been written anywhere, because I'm nameless, I'm only a frequency that never repeats itself twice, I disavow. And that means I'm out of it. So I'm out of the confusion, because that was what was on the Oath of Harmon and all of what they were talking about, and all the let's go do the deed, and the giants came in with the women and all of that. Like, okay, that's great. I close the book now. Where are we at? What have we learned? What have we gained? I'm holding count, recompense on myself, not others. I'm not trying to master over others, master myself. I'm not a sorcerer. So in teaching that, then one sees the truth within themselves. And that, to me, that's the greatest arcana right there. That's the formula. So it's so funny, because if we keep trying to find it outside, we'll never find it. It's like something on your hand, but your hand is too close to your face, so you can't see it. And that's how it eludes us. But when we step back for a minute and take just a look at ourselves, we start seeing the incredible existence. And then when you reverse engineer that, any person that ever worked mechanics, you reverse engineer that, you realize the whole thing is sentient. So we're not in a dummy. We just need to wise up. And then once we do that, we change the frequency. So by cosmic laws, which is, I don't want to play with land law, I don't play with Merovingian law, I don't play any of the cosmic law. Now, what has been done must be undone. You must untie this Gordian knot. And then don't give me that it's impossible, because that's what our ancestors do. We do the impossible then. So these are the guys, and these are the women, and these are the beings, and these are the spirits that you call when it's time for the impossible to be done. And it looks like to me, when ignorance, pestilence, injustice, and abuse of our children comes over the land, then I incarnate. Meaning no matter what days I'm in, what stupor I'm in, if I'm running around the club or whatever, I get a page. And then that page say, hey, it's time to wake up, Supreme Being. Because everything that you are is at stake. It's the age-old time again. And we must respond to that call. So this Donald Trump is the final Trump. The final trumpet. It's the time for people to wake up. If so many people can be led to, I mean, that was a joke at first. Now it's not funny. We can see the level of where people are. It's like they're putty in the minds of the media now. Hollywood is the politics. I mean, Reagan started that. Shit, it goes back even further. So we now say, well, what are we going to do? We need our power. And our power doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. If you can't configure your consciousness properly, you can't even hold the power. It just burns up your lines in your skin. It's vivid. It burns all up through the veins and the nadis of the body. The chakra collapses. So that means we got work to do. But guess what? We have the ability. We have the genetics. We have the memories. We have the help. The only thing that we got to do is agree to be available to ourselves. It's time for you now. You need you. So all the extra stuff that we're catering to, all the codependencies, like I said, the people that, are pulling from us and the things we keep engaging with, trying to hold it up, you get the page. And now you know the knowledge is here. So now there's no excuse. See, they say, woe to the ones who know. Not the ones that do not know, because they shall know not. So this just means if you have this knowledge now, where much has been given, much is required. And that just simply means applying it in your everyday life, sharing it with others if that's possible, without destroying relationships. Some people, they'll fight you over this. You tell them the Supreme Being, they'll try to kill you. How does that work? You see what I mean? Think about it. You tell someone they're the Supreme Being and that they're actually the God, they'll try to kill you. That lets you know how far we are. They're like, well, there's no God but Allah. There's no God but Jesus. There's no God but everyone but them. When they fill in the blank, it's everyone but them. So you see the gig. The gig is simple. So we actually restore the person's power. As I say, remember, we put back on the members, and we're their members. And that's, that's the membership. That's what it is. So, I'm glad that, you got a chance to not only hear the message, but also the message touch you in one way or another. But I will say, it's surely your presence. Like, we're in this presence together. And in that, we're going to be all right. Because the other ones, they may feel the burden of this. Like, but how can I do it from it? No. Slow down. You do what you can do. I'll do what I can do. And we're going to be all right. I can guarantee you that, if you can guarantee it to yourself.